Welcome to the Genius Talk podcast. I am your host Atul Raj from the bestemailmarketer.com, and today we have Kylie Leota with us. Kylie, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, me too. So, for our listeners who don't know you, can you tell them who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so my name is Kylie Leota, and I am help people solve problems, particularly around leadership and high performance teams. And I'm kind of known for somebody who sees patterns of behavior and helps teams solve complex problems to get the best out of their teams and the best out of their organizations. And so I'm the founder of a business called Elements for Success. And that's because I really loved a definition that Earl Nightingale had around his definition of success. He said that success is the progressive realization of a worthy goal or ideal. So I love that definition because for me, my definition of success could look differently to your definition of success. And then from my perspective, there's lots of just different elements that we need to work on to create what that definition of success looks like for us. So whether that be individually, as a team, or as an organization, that's what I focus on is helping teams and organizations create that success, like Earl Nightingale says.
Okay, so what inspired you to start Element for Success?
Yeah, so I actually had a government job for over 20 years in Australia. And so I worked with lots of different types of people. And what I found was, being a leader is really hard. As a leader, you don't want to often tell people that you're having a problem. And you certainly don't want to tell your bosses that you're having a problem. And you don't want to tell your staff you're having a problem. So who is your safe person to have a conversation with and figure out how to solve problems, how to be the best leader that you can be? And they were challenges that I faced in my own leadership journey. So after 20 years in government in a variety of different positions, what I recognized is that people used to come to me for a lot of advice, and I was a really safe space for brave and courageous conversations. So I had an injury in 2019 that made me sort of really reflect and recalibrate on what I wanted to do in my life. And I used that adversity as a bit of a platform for change. And now I help people in all walks of life create that change for themselves through being that safe space for that brave and courageous conversations, whether that be individual, team, or organization.
Okay, so can you share your thoughts on what makes a truly high performing team?
Such a great question. And it's such a complex one. It's kind of like we overcomplicate things, but it's equally complicated. So one of the things is there was a study by Google and they called it Project Aristotle. And they said that there were five key elements to the best team. But one of the things that they recognized were things like meaning, like having purpose to your work, having dependability, people in your team that you could rely on to do what they said they were going to do, clarity, there were things like that. But what they also recognized is that without psychological safety, which is the ability to speak up without fear of retribution and being able to have honest and open conversations, that none of the other stuff mattered. So you couldn't get dependability unless you had really strong psychological safety. And it's really interesting in my work. A lot of people know what it feels like to not be psychologically safe. So, for example, you've ever walked into a room or into a meeting and gone, I don't belong here. I shouldn't be in this conversation or I shouldn't be in this meeting. That's not having psychological. Most people will have experienced that sometime in their life, but people don't know what it feels like to feel safe. And sometimes we've got a definition that means, oh, I can't speak up and say anything hard to my colleague because then I'm going to cause a problem. But that's not psychological safety either. It could be you and I having a really strong debate about how we do something. But at the end of the day, we're challenging each other's thoughts. But my job's not at risk if I challenge your idea. And we can still walk away at the end of it feeling respect and trust for each other that we're working towards a higher purpose and a better goal. And that conversation is to improve the quality of the innovation and to improve the quality of our.
Okay. So, what are some common barriers to effective leadership that you have helped your client to overcome?
Yeah. So often one of the things is that fear of speaking up. I can see that there's a problem going on, but I'm not going to speak up because I might get in trouble or people might take it the wrong way. Or there's no point in me speaking up because no one listens to me. So that's something that I hear really often. And so I go in and I help teams establish the fact that the best teams are often the most diverse teams. We need to understand perspective taking, but we need to have a communication strategy about how we hold space for how we communicate. Because you are the sum of your experiences in your life, and I'm the sum of my experiences in my life. And that doesn't mean good, bad, better, worse. It means that we both offer a diverse perspective to solving a problem. And if we can communicate that effectively, we're going to get a better outcome for the team and for the organization. So that's a really common one that I see. And I often see things like people don't know how to. And a really good example last week, I was talking to some chefs actually in a restaurant. And, sometimes as you're getting a meal, people are pretty quick to complain if their food's not of good service. And as the head chef, you want to make sure that you're delivering the best food possible. Now, if someone on your team isn't doing the right thing or they're not meeting the expectation, how do you have that hard conversation and get a good outcome versus that person being upsetting and quitting or that person, you know, saying that you're being a bully to them? So, how do we have those conversations where we're coming together for the common goal of improving an outcome? And so sometimes leaders are having trouble because they're not sure how to have those conversations. And sometimes staff are not sure how to speak up. So I do a lot of work around communication. How do we give and receive feedback? How do we improve outcomes? How do we innovate? But speaking up and how to have hard conversations is a lot of the common work that I see that people are having trouble with at the moment.
You know what? You talked about overcoming procrastination and aligning action with purpose, right? So, what is
Yes.
the first step do you recommend for someone who's feeling stuck?
So the first thing that I love to read, but there is so much information out there. If you went on Amazon and you typed in leadership, there's like, I don't know, 400,000 books on leadership. So if you want to be a good, like, where do I start? Right. And so one of the things that I was facing is, well, how do I know what the right information is and what's the right information for me? And so I created my own model because it was what worked for me. So the first part when you're stuck is really I created a model called infinite and like the infinite evolution of continuous improvement, right? So we're always trying to be better. But the first I in infinite is about our own identity. Who are we and who do we think we are versus what are the other stories that people have got about us? So someone might have a story that says that they're very bossy but when you actually unpack it with them, they really just want to be helpful and share their ideas. So their identity is different. There's no alignment between what people are saying about them and what they're feeling. So we have to understand our identity and who we are and who we aspire to be and what our values are. That's really important because if we're constantly put in positions where my value is integrity. And through this work I'm doing, I'm always put in a position where I'm asked to walk out of alignment with integrity. Then I'm going to feel yuck about my job. I'm not going to do a good job, and there's going to be a problem. And then we work through the different pillars that people need. So the first pillar is identity, the last pillar is ecosystem, the people that we surround ourselves. So if you've got people in your world that if they see you doing something really poorly, they don't want you to be successful, are they the right people to have around you? Or do we need to have people around you that are going to sit down and go, look, Atul, I really want to have a conversation about this with you because I know you're capable of so much more and I want to help you get there. Have a champion on your team. And then we work out what other pillars people need. So we need to understand emotional intelligence. We need to understand how to communicate effectively. We need to know how to create psychological safety. So within those infinite pillars, we work through all of those, but we always, always start with self. Because in order to lead other people, we first got to lead ourselves. And in order to lead ourselves, we have to understand ourselves. Because otherwise, we're not going to make good decisions and we're not going to understand why we get ourselves in these situations all the time.
Okay, so, what inspired you to write your book, Infinite Leadership?
Part of it was because I felt like life was a journey of continuous improvement,
Mm-hmm.
and I would be dealing with people that would get really mad every time they had to learn something new at work. So every job you go to, there's policies and procedures, and then every
Uh-huh.
couple of years, the organizations want to update it. and they're like, "Oh, I've got to learn something new," and I'm getting really frustrated. Why do I have to learn this? I just learned this other thing. If we could change our mindset and go, well, learning this gives me the new opportunity to be a better version of myself. I don't know anybody that wakes up in the morning and says, I want to do a really bad job today. I want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be a terrible leader. I want to be I don't know anybody that lays in bed in the morning and goes, yes, please let me be terrible at my job today. Everybody wants to do a good job, but people need to continuously improve and learn new skills so they can be a better person each day than the day before. The other reason is for me, I went through my own journey of understanding that I was really stuck in my own life. So
Mm-hmm.
I created a model that worked for me. So the first piece of the work was my identity. Who was I? I had this injury. I was in a high up leadership position and I thought that was going to be my life's work. And then all of a sudden that wasn't available to me. And now I didn't know who I was. I'm like, who am I without this job? Because so much of our identity is wrapped up in our work. So who am I if I can't do this? So I had to kind of figure that out. And then I had to work through the next stages. And so for me, the information, and sometimes I think what happens is you learn about yourself and there's different personality profiling tools that you can do. There's lots of different things. And so you might go to one job and you might learn this one tool and then they go, right, I'm this particular person. And then you go to a new job and there's different people around you and you might need different skills that you don't have. And then you're like, but I'm this person. I did this test and it said I'm this person. This is who I should be. And then it doesn't work in this environment. So now you need a new identity and you need new skills. So, how to help people navigate that? So, I love reading, and I'm not in my office with my bookcase, but I've got this very big bookcase that has thousands of books in it. And I love reading. Not everybody loves that. I'm very blessed that I love that. But I also think, how do you know the right information? So, for me, it is about creating a really strong reflective process and then figuring out how to I figure out what information I need right now to get me to the next level instead of feeling really overwhelmed that
Mm-hmm.
there's so much information out there, I don't know where to start. So I'm just not going to because I just get stuck.
Okay. So you read a lot of books, right? So what are the best book you have ever read that has the most impact on your work?
Do I have to pick just one? Are you going to make me pick
Okay.
just one? Goodness me,
Okay. You can.
that's going to be
I will give
hard.
you three.
That's too hard a question.
Okay.
There's a few different books, and I guess it's a bit like my own journey is I guess I like different parts of different books for different reasons. So, Gay Hendricks has a book called The Big Leap, which is about how we self sabotage ourselves, particularly when
Mm-hmm.
we're getting successful.
Mm-hmm.
People always talk about feeling down and low and stuff like that. But when you start to be successful, we often
Mm-hmm.
sabotage ourselves. So Gay Hendricks, and I remember I was actually in the car and I was driving and I was listening to it as I was driving. And I was
Mm-hmm.
actually yelling at the radio because I'm like, stop it. You're being mean to me. I don't want to hear this information. But it was really, really game changing.
Mm-hmm.
There's a book, so I'm a single parent. So there's a book by a lady called Glennon Doyle. It's not traditionally a leadership book, but it's called
Mm-hmm.
Untamed. And there's
Untamed.
a
Okay.
saying, yeah, there's a saying in that book that said, "My children don't need me to save them. They need to watch me save myself." And that was like, for me, that was like, well, what am I modeling right now? And as a leader,
Mm-hmm.
my staff don't need me to save them. They need me to
Yeah.
model for them what that looks like, right? So that was a pretty big game
Mm-hmm.
changer. And anything Brene Brown related, I love her work. So she's just got a new book called Strong Ground, and that's been really powerful as well. And so there's this concept that she talks about, and a few other people talk about, and it talks about above the line and below the line. So when we're being a
Mm-hmm.
leader and we're acting above the line, we're walking in alignment with who we are. And when we're below the line, that's when we're
Mm-hmm.
caught in that blame game and, blame. It's all somebody else's fault, and we become the victim. And so, how to help people walk above the line. So Brene Brown, Strong Ground is my most recent favorite book, but I have lots of favorites. That could be a whole podcast in itself, just going through the books that I love, but we don't have time for that today.
Okay. Okay. So for our listeners who want to know more about you or get help from you, where can they go?
Yeah, so elements number 4 success.com.au is my website, and you can hit the contact page and book a call, and we can have a conversation about how we can help you to navigate whatever you're going through, whether that's through your team, through your organization. And you can also find me on LinkedIn, Kylie, Kylee Leota, and also on Instagram and Facebook as elements number 4 success.
Okay, Kylie, is there anything else that you would like to share?
Yeah, I think, one of the things I was running a training last week and we were talking a lot about I've just completed an infinite leadership diagnostic with a few members of this team, and that's come out of my book and that's come out of my work. And what was really, really insightful was doing coaching, things like coaching and this type of work that I'm talking about is actually really
Mhm.
hard work. Like you don't
Yeah.
walk away going, "Oh man, that was easy. That was so easy." You go to a compliance training where they're like, "Fill out the form here." And you're like, "Oh, okay, no worries. That's really easy training." The work that we do in leadership and leadership development and aspirational leaders and psychological safety is hard work, but the return on an investment of that hard work is, so exponential. And if you want to be a leader, or if you want to have an organization that really delivers and,
Mhm.
delivers financially, but delivers good products and delivers really good outcomes for people, then you've got to do the work. And it's going to be messy sometimes, and you're going to be sitting there going, "Oh, this is hard." But on the other side of the messy is what makes it all worthwhile. And you're going to have so many more skills than you had before, and you're going to be able to apply these skills not just at work but in the rest of your life, and it's going to make every single relationship you ever have, whether it be with a partner, whether it be family, with your children, with friends, it'll make every relationship. So the ROI is not just about work, it's about making your life a better outcome. And when I talk, one of the things I talk about is the ecosystem in your book is I actually really hate the word balance. I don't think, well, first of all, I'm terrible at it. Work life balance. What does that even look like? I don't know. I've never been very good at it. But I
Same,
also
yeah.
think about, yeah, right. And I'm very blessed. I love what I do. So it's very easy to fall into the trap of working all of the time, not because I hate my job. I love what I do. I'm very, very blessed. But what if we had this idea of a symphony and creating a perfect symphony? So in an orchestra, there's lots of different parts of the orchestra. You've got your percussion, you've got your strings, you've got a guitar behind you. So I know that you love music, so you've got woodwind and things like that. And in a perfect symphony, everything plays in harmony. So what if instead of trying to create balance, we looked at creating harmony? And sometimes in any music, whether you're playing in a rock band or whether you're playing in an orchestra, sometimes one instrument might play louder for a while. It might have a solo, and that's okay. But for the song to be a perfect symphony, you have to have harmony. So it can't play solo all the time. So work can't play solo all the time. Your health can't play solo all the time. Finances, all of these different things. It's okay to focus on them at different times in creating a symphony, but everything has to have, we have to come back to create this perfect harmony. And when you're focusing on something, so maybe it's work, in a symphony, it doesn't mean everything else stops playing. Everything's still playing in the background. And we've all got, in any band, any music, the percussion is it's like the foundation of any music, right? Because if your percussion is playing too loud or too soft or too fast or too slow, it wrecks the music. So what would it look like if we got your foundation right and we helped you create perfect harmony in your life so that you could create this beautiful symphony and your life was this beautiful symphony? What would that look like for you?
Is that a question for me?
That is a question for you, but it's also a question for your audience. Yeah.
So, for my
What if you could
listeners,
create harmony instead of balance? That's the question.
I would choose harmony.
Yeah, right? So,
Yeah.
that's the goal, whether it be harmony at work, whether it be harmony at home, but harmony in your life holistically
Hmm.
so that you have the best life possible.
Yeah, exactly. And our listeners, go to Kylie's website and answer this. Do you want harmony or other
Balance.
thing? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Kylie, thank you so much for spending some time with us, and it was really fun chatting with you.
Thank you so much for having me. I've had a fabulous time and hopefully we can catch up again soon.
Yep. Sure.